Been up with her over by
See you hide plastic?
and
We're really like
These are for the business showcase.
Oh, nice.
Ooh, I don't know if you.
Setting the clinics and classes and presentations for the store. So before I let these two lovely ladies get started on this presentation, I just have a couple quick questions to ask. By show of hands, I'm always trying to figure out how people hear about our presentations. So just quick show of hands, how many people heard about it through Gear Mail, the email that comes out? Grab a seat. No, not at all. Great. Sit wherever you like.
Cool. Okay, well, my name is Carrie, and this is Malora, and we'll tell you just a little bit about what our idea was with putting up this presentation. You should know, about 10 to 6, there was no one here. And we were like, maybe only the people we know will show up. And now it's a little more intimidating. But anyways, outside of that, we set this presentation up to kind of cover all the bases on how to get started on hiking a big hike like this, because logistically it can be somewhat of a challenge. And we had never hiked a through hike like this before. We've definitely done little stuff here and there, but this was kind of a, oh, hey, let's do it. Okay, let's go. Quit job, sell stuff, move. And so the idea behind the presentation is how we did it. And I'm sure a lot of you have done different things along this line before, so I'm sure there are 1,000 ways to do everything that we did. And we definitely did a lot of things wrong and then figured out the better way to do it. So let's see. That being said, this is the end of the trail. This is in Canada. And this is a very nice picture to see. We'll go ahead and get started. Yeah, I'm done. Go ahead.
All right, so for those of you that don't know, the Pacific Crest Trail is a continuous trail that goes from the border of Mexico to the border of Canada. It's approximately, changes a little bit year to year. Right now, or last year, it was 2,663.5 miles with some trail closures, but that was the complete trail. I did a little history on it today, and the idea was started in about the 30s, and a woman in Bellingham from Western actually was involved in the original idea of it. But it didn't get passed through the federal government as a national scenic trail until about the 60s, and people started hiking it in the early 70s. And we actually met a few hikers this summer that had previously hiked it in their early 20s in the 70s, and they were amazed at how far the trail has come. We started on April 29th, and we finished September 21st. It was 148 days total, so 4 months and 3 weeks, and we averaged about 25 miles a day. So those are our stats.
And I talked about the logistics when we were first getting started. So logistics, there are tons of ways to do this. We actually had some really supportive people. And I'll also tell you about ways to get support from people. It's really tricky, but super nice. We actually, Malora's mother had read some trail journals and things, and got really into it and asked to be our support person. I don't know if you'll have an opportunity to have someone ask you if they can be that person, but if you do, you're so lucky. And so she took it upon herself to do some of our food for us, and then also to be the person that would send packages out. We went through and we did all our boxes, and on the PCTA website, if any of you have looked at it, there's all the addresses of the different stops. And there are stops that aren't listed on there that if you do a little more research, you can find them. But we just went through and printed out all the labels, so all she had to do was throw in whatever I had. We need food for 5 days. She'd throw it in there and just drop it off at the mailbox. And then at the end of the trail, she gave us a tab. So some people don't do it like that at all. Some people choose not to have that, or maybe don't have that. And the option is there to go into town and to buy your food or buy whatever the things you need. We chose to do it this way because we could. And we did change it up, though. We didn't do food the entire time through packages because, as we found out, about halfway through, we got pretty sick of just about everything you can consume. So we did part packages, and then we did part going into grocery stores. So we just did about half and half to split it up so we didn't gag when we were eating our food. You eat it a lot, nonstop. So.
And the great thing about the post offices that are set up in the towns along the PCT is that they're equipped to hold packages for hikers. And so you put your name on there, you show up in this little tiny town, show your ID, and all of a sudden you've got a package with your food and all your resupply needs. So it's really neat that they do that service along the way. And we chose to use priority mail just because it's a one flat rate for weight, so we just stuff in as much as we could in each box. So.
And the trick to get more support. So there's going to be a lot of people, if you do decide to do this hike or even a section of it, and people are like, oh, we want to hear about it, oh, send us emails if you can, whatever. Those are key people. So what we did was we tallied all those people up, and we sent out an email and we said, hey, here's all the addresses that we're going to be picking up boxes. We would love care packages around this date. So we gave them the dates we were going to be there. First couple stops there wasn't anything, and so we sent another email and said, some of you have been asking why we didn't give a list of what we wanted. And so we started putting down, oh, this is what wow, Carrie really likes paydays or whatever, or wow, Band-Aids, extra Band-Aids are always helpful. And so by giving a few things that are really helpful to have on the trail, or just give people an idea of where to start, all of a sudden we got box after box after box, to the point where we shared with everybody because we had so much food and fun and candies and magazine articles and just little things like that. So, you know, friends want to help. Sometimes they just need a little guidance.
And one more thing on this, the people who choose not to have a support person, the real disadvantage to that is financially, because you're going into a town and you're having to resupply, and whatever is there is what you need. So sometimes there's only a post office and a gas station, and you're resupplying on Snickers and cheese whiz. And that's fine. Some people love not putting in the time, because logistically this is really fun for us, and we had a great time doing all the planning. But for some people, they just want to start hiking and not worry about it. So.
And we met a lot of people that did.
Yeah, it's really however you want. And if anybody has questions, please stop us. And
I have a question.
Yeah.
How often are you able to use internet anymore? Because you said you were like sending emails.
Probably once every 2 weeks, we'd stop into a town, and there'd be, a library. You could go to the library and use it.
Or,
yeah. Almost all the towns along the way rely on the tourism from the hikers, and really are quite welcoming. And so they would, you'd show up, and there's signs, and come this way for internet and things like that. So.
How many of you have hiked the PCT or a section or any sort of long distance hike or like to hike? Okay. So, who's never done anything and has no clue and is just here because they saw the sign? Okay. All right. Some more logistics. We have some printouts here, and we didn't expect so many people, but if you want, we can also forward this information to you. But if you want to grab one afterwards, we've just kind of tallied up the different websites and books that we use that we found helpful, being the PCTA list, and then the different, the data book, for example, which we brought, and I don't know if now's a good time. We'll pass it around. This is what's left of our data book, but you can just look through it. They have all these books out here, and there's opinions about what's helpful and what's not. This is from one of the guidebooks, and this is, I don't know why we still have this section, but I think this is a package that got lost. That also happens. So even if you're counting on your packages 100%, sometimes they do get lost in the mail. So we'll send this one around too. And they do have the books out here. Some people used them, some people didn't. Some people printed off maps from like Google Maps or anything that they could find. Some had like the National Geographic, fold-out maps, and it's really whatever is going to work for you. So maps are helpful. We actually hiked with a couple of guys who only followed our footprints. So I don't know if that was
they had no maps.
No maps. No maps, no books, no nothing. Where are we going next?
And there is also a plethora of websites and trail journals. If you're really interested and you want to get a feel for what people go through from the beginning to the end, you can go and you can read. And it's pretty entertaining.
Yeah.
Did you find anyone using like GPX files where they uploaded maps onto their
Just a few people had GPS
Really?
gadgets, but not very many.
Yeah. Gadgets.
Not too many gadgets.
Wow.
Some people did have them, but we didn't.
So you don't know if there's
I had Malora. She's
Yeah.
incredible.
Yeah,
She's
you
a good
can
one.
buy something for the
You can?
Yeah.
Okay, that's
You can.
specific with the trail?
Yeah. One gadget that everyone did have, not everyone, but that was common on the trail was the spot. So a lot of people chose to use that, and it just sends you can transmit a signal from where you are, and I think it might even use Google Earth. And then it sends it to whoever you want it to go to, and then they get an email that basically shows that you're right there, which is kind of cool. So for some of the younger hikers, their parents insisted
We need to know it live. But it also sends out an emergency signal as well. So we didn't have that either, but we just hiked with people who did.
Like, you have a spot? You want to hike with us?
You're with us over this crazy pass.
All right. Any other questions on books or anything like that?
And these will be up here if I forget to pass them out, then come grab them if you're interested.
Okay, so gear. So the options are absolutely endless when it comes to gear, and it's similar to any sport. You can go as expensive, as high-tech, as lightweight, as you want. For us, we were on a really tight budget, so we really had to find that happy median where we weren't spending a ton of money, but we were really concerned about weight. We chose to use Go Light packs, and this is Carrie's pack. You can see that it's frameless. Go Light kind of prides themselves on being this ultralight company. I think this is 1 pound 9 ounces.
It is. I don't know. Sorry.
Yeah.
Go ahead.
Yeah. And it's like 42 liters of space. So it was plenty of space for us. And we saved about 3 or 4 pounds just by using this. But because of the frameless pack, we did have shoulder problems when we had extra food or extra water. But even people with packs with frames complained about shoulder problems. So, I mean, who knows? But if you want to take a look at this, I mean, we'll use this for years. Carrie ended up having to add to hers because she just lost a little weight. But so that's what we chose to use. For sleeping, this is our Thermarest Z-Rest, and we just bought the long one and cut it in half. We decided to use a Thermarest not for comfort but for warmth.
It took us a while to figure out that it wasn't supposed to be comfortable.
Yeah, super light. We didn't sleep all that great, but for warmth it was essential for us. We used 20-degree sleeping bags, which worked, but then we added liners, which added about another 10 degrees. The liners saved our lives, truly. And if I was going to do it again as a woman, I would have splurged on a super light 0-degree bag, absolutely, because we were cold. The other thing that we used a lot, I was just kind of so glad we grabbed them at REI or wherever, were little stuff sacks or dry sacks that were little stuff sacks. And we would throw our clothes in there, we would throw food in there, but when we did hit weather, it was nice because we knew that our other set of clothing was at least dry. And so it was one of those gear things that we really enjoyed. Go to the next slide.
Could you tell us where that top picture is from?
Where it is?
Yeah.
This is right off of the 20. Is the 20 the North Cascades Highway or the?
Yeah.
Sorry, off the 2. So just north of the 2 as you come up off that pass.
This is in Big Bear.
Yeah, this is right before Big Bear in Southern California. Did I go to the next page?
Oh, this. Okay, so some more gear talk. We're not gear junkies. There are people who are gear junkies, and if you're in this room, then you know way more than I do. I just know this works, this doesn't. I like this. That was horrible. So, shoes. We went through about 5 pairs of shoes each. We didn't see a lot of hiking boots on the trail for a lot of reasons. One, they're heavier. 2, if they get wet, damp, anything like that, they took a lot longer to dry. Tennis shoes, we thought they were great, and we got a few pairs from REI, some that I loved, some she hated. We ended up going to Ross for a few pairs, and then we just stuck them in our boxes, and these were like $30 at Ross.
These are my favorite.
So much so that she didn't want a new pair yet, so her toes were pushing through, so I stiffed some duct tape. That was my plan. It worked. It worked okay. And mesh is great. You know, you're going to read a lot of places that mesh on shoes is really helpful. It is if your feet get hot easily. The only downside is that if you're walking in sandy areas, the sand does like to come inside your shoes with the mesh. So that would be the only down part. Of course, that's the part where you really want the air in your feet as well. The tent we chose to go through, which was a Henry Shire's tarp tent, and we brought that. We'll pass it around. It's super light. It's like what, just 2 pounds or just under?
Yeah, it's just over 2 pounds, and this is a 2-person tent. And
Yeah,
that's
so
it. It uses the trekking poles, and this guy really makes some great products.
And if you has anybody seen his website before?
Mhm.
Awesome website. If you have the time to make your own, he's got the plans on there to make your own. Henry Shire. And,
He's actually out of Seattle.
Yeah, he's really helpful. If you have questions, you can call him. And there were some people that did have trouble with their tents. We didn't, so of course we're loving it. But it does have 1 pole, and it's in the back. But that's it. Otherwise, you use your your trekking poles, which is nice because depending on the weather, you can make it higher, you can make it shorter. There's air all the way around the sides, and tons of headroom. So that's what we found. A lot of people in the past trail journals had complained they didn't have a lot of headroom in their small little bags. And when it comes to mosquito areas, it's really nice to be able to get into an enclosed area, but still be able to function without having to crawl around on your elbows. So as far as ground claws or footprints, we use Tyvek. And we were using we had this old poncho that we were using for a while, and then that got torn, and so we found some old Tyvek in a hiker box, which we'll get to in a little bit. And it was awesome. It was waterproof, it was warm, it was small, it was lightweight, super compact.
And it's cheap.
Super cheap.
Highly recommend
Crinkle it up,
Tyvek.
throwing it in there, and yeah, we loved it. Anyways, you got more gear on there?
Any questions on gear?
At your pack weight without food in it?
Without? That was basically, it was like 11, 12 pounds depending on how many frills we had decided to carry.
Yeah.
So.
Our goal was to not be over 25 pounds with food and a little bit of water. So we exceeded that the longer we hiked. But
we geared this presentation around the questions that we got asked the most as well. So we ran into a lot of people that were like, oh, what if people hike by themselves? What happens? Is that scary? Is it okay? Like, how does that work? And, I don't think we actually met too many people that were hiking with people. Most people were solo hikers that had found a community. So your option is there. If you're out there to be alone and have your time and have your space, you can have it. It's available. If you want a community, if you want to find people, if you want to, hang out and just kind of, get that vibe from the hiking community, which is incredible, also available. We found, this is one of our friends, her trail name was Pothead, and she was a solo hiker, and she would kind of float around from group to group, and if we're like, hey, we need some space, she's like, oh, okay, no problem. So, it's just a really amazing community to be a part of. So this is out of Castle Crags, right?
mm-hmm. Yeah, in Northern California. And currently the PCT has about 300 to 400 people hiking it every year, which is a low number compared to the numbers that hike the AT. But even still with that, there's a window of time that everyone is hiking. For the most part, they're all starting within maybe a month of each other. And so, truly, we would go days where we didn't see anybody. In fact, the entire state of Washington, we hiked by ourselves and barely saw any other hikers. But through Southern California, through Central California, some days it was just stop for lunch and there'd be 25 hikers just sitting there having lunch, and you're from all over the world. So the hiking community was by far the delight of the trail that we didn't expect. And the people that we met were absolutely amazing, and it was really fun. And these are some of our favorites, but this is going through, going into Mammoth area. So before High Sierra, but south of Mammoth and south of Yosemite. You can see that we were dealing with mosquitoes at the time.
Yeah, it's actually quite warm, but everybody has to have on the long pants and the raincoats. It's so sticky.
And this would be a good time to tell you about, there's an event called the Kickoff, and it's actually called like the annual 0 day, something. It's a long name, or the Kickoff, and it happens like, I think the last weekend in April. And it's just 20 miles north of the Mexican border, so 20 miles north of of Campo, California, and it's like a 2-day thing where there's vendors and there's alumni and all these people, hundreds of people are all there to support the current hikers. So a lot of solo hikers and just groups all get to know each other at the kickoff. And it's a really neat thing, and if you're thinking about hiking the PCT, I highly encourage you to just get a ticket to San Diego and go to the kickoff even before you are planning to hike the trail, because the information, like Henry Shire is there, and you really get to talk to people who've hiked the trail numerous times. I mean, there are people that hike the trail every single year, year after year. And so it's, it's a really neat thing.
Did you see many hikers with dogs that would go through this?
Yes, there was one particular hiker that had a dog, and she was a great dog. She only had problems in the national parks. In the national parks where dogs aren't allowed. And so she tried.
She skipped around.
Yeah, she had to skip around some sections, and then they're not supposed to be in national parks. If you run into a ranger, that's going to be the issue. But there's tons of trails that, there's tons of portions of the trail that are open to dogs as well. And, if you can find a way to keep your dog off out of the national park area, maybe if there's a trail angel around that'll transport your dog around to where the park trail ends, it's a great way to do it. She did have to hike in, and then they told her she had to turn around.
Yeah,
which
she
is
had some
kind of
rangers really get on her pretty hard, but for the most part she did just fine, I think.
And the dog did great too. Needed special care.
I was saying that the hiking community was a delight. I think the other absolute delight were trail angels and trail magic. And if you haven't heard of those phrases, trail angels are people who just take care of hikers and do all those amazing things that you hope someone would do for you. And it really comes in all forms, and trail magic is just the name for all of those wonderful things. It's hiking and coming across a cooler that's full of ice cold water and beer and Gatorade, and it's in the middle of nowhere, and it's for PCT hikers. And it's stopping in at a home that, this corner one here is the laundry tent of the Softleys in Southern California, and they host 50 hikers a night. She takes like a month off of work and just caters to hikers. It's showers, it's food, it's a bed, laundry, and it's not just there. I mean, there's numerous people and places throughout the trail who do it. And it's really, really amazing, and we were amazed by it time and time again. And we'd highly encourage you, being in Washington, I would say Washington had the smallest amount of trail magic. Luckily, we had a lot of friends, so we lucked out. But other people really noticed it, like, wow, I'm so tired, and I would sure love to find a cooler, So if you're ever, up on any of the highways, on 90 or 20 or 2, just stop, and you'll see the signs that say they're passing over right there at the pass. Just leave something, and yeah.
We just looked as pathetic as possible in all the rainy paths. We would just sit there, like, do you want a beer? And you're like, yeah. That's trail magic. Washington, and it's the final stretch for people who are going north, and so if there's weather going on, it can be a really hard part. So if you have time, if you want to share it with people, you go up this weekend, refill it, I'll go up next weekend. It's just really helpful to get people through the push.
Or even choosing, if you're going to day hike up in the North Cascades, day hike and just take some extra stuff with you. And if when you're on the PCT, more than likely you'll see a hiker if you're hiking in August or September. So, just keep it in mind, because it's really amazing as a hiker to receive that.
Yeah, we unloaded a lot of people's backpacks full of food. I don't know if it was the duct tape and the extra inches on my backpack. We were like, do you need some baked goods? Like, yes, I do. I mean, crazy day hikers. Whoa, I've never eaten so much. Okay, so weather. It's, going light, it's hard to carry everything you need. There are chairs in the front. I don't know if you guys are cool with standing in the back, but if you want to sit down, you can. So I know, that's awkward, but it's there. It's hard to carry everything you want, like your good snowboarding gloves and your really nice boots hat, and leg warmers would have been helpful. Weather, you never know what you're going to get, and we have some pictures coming up in the next slide that show you that You can do the best you can, but you always have to be ready. So this is an hour outside of LA. I don't know where you were. This is Mount Waterman, Baden Powell.
Yeah, you were south of me. You guys.
We got it. So we woke up, and this is what it looked like, and ultimately ended up being at least 6 inches of snow at this elevation, and then we ended up going higher. And I don't know what the final result was, but where we ended up hanging out until the weather passed, they ended up with a foot of snow. So this is an hour outside of LA on June 1st. So you don't really know what you're going to get. But that was like the worst of it. We ended up in Oregon. We had about 6 days of rain, and that was the weather for our trail. So we can't complain too much. There are people who get rained on the entire month of September. So every year is different. You just have to carry it and prepare. We carried rain jackets the entire trail and didn't get rained on until, end of August? Middle of August. We're like, oh, good, we get to use our stuff. Anyway, so you have to carry it. You have to figure out what works. She had a rain jacket that we bought and it didn't work, and it was I don't remember what it was. I probably shouldn't gear bash, but anyways, it was just she just got soaked through in the rain, and so that was kind of like, okay, we'll be returning that. So right after this rain, we ended up hitching into Bend, Oregon, and went to the REI and waited for them to open. Changed it out.
Well, and really weather complicates the trail in such a way that you don't know what to expect. And so it's that being as prepared as possible and having a plan. With having consecutive days of rain, we had issues at night, of like, okay, because when you're packing up your tent, everything is wet on the outside and you're trying to put it in heavy. I mean, our packs were so incredibly heavy. Our tent alone was probably 8 pounds at that point. But without having sun, you kind of dry it out. So it was just kind of constantly trying to think of how we were going to take care of this. Luckily, it wasn't very, very cold, so it wasn't really a true risk. But I mean, you need to sleep, and you can't be sleeping in a cold sleeping bag. So that's where we actually we put our sleeping bags in dry sack stuff bags instead of this stuff bag that it came with, and that was great for us because we always knew that at least our sleeping bag was dry. So.
That was my poncho on Yeti. I don't know if you know Yeti. A very, very large man. And he's like, I don't have any rain gear. It's in my bunk box. And I was like, well, I have this poncho. Anyways, some other obstacles. Fires. There's fires every year, so you just you don't have to be on top of it to know where the fires are. The information will come to you.
You're going so slow, 25 miles a day, it's like, you'll get there by the time.
Hopefully it's out by the time you get there. Fires, this was just outside of Kennedy Meadows, right? And they actually told us the fire was out and the trail was open and clear and we could go through. And you can't really tell on here, but the trail goes like this. And we were standing there as we were getting closer. I was like, man, it's really smoky. And I was like, oh, they say there's firemen right there at the trail. Okay, so they'll guide us through if we need it. Well, I guess the firemen had been called off because the fire was out, but it flared up again. And as it was kind of this sort of around the bend thing, and we kind of got around the bend and ash started being I don't think this is normal. Do you think? I don't know. And then all of a sudden we got to where we were, and we just saw this tree go. I was like, I'm not comfortable with this. And there were some people behind us, and they were like, oh, what's going on? We're like, well, you can go, but we're going to turn around because we're not comfortable. And we actually kind of went down thinking we could go around it, and then some low brush started going and it just all kind of started catching fire again. So we turned around and went back about, 3 or 4 miles until I felt safe. And then we camped by a river in case I needed to some water. And that's where we camped for the night. And in the morning we woke up and the firefighters were there again. And I was like, I'm so glad you're here. And then it was out by then, so it was fine. But yeah, so fires can be an issue.
And at that point, you have to choose, are you going to walk around? I mean, if you have a trail closure, then are you going to walk around? Are you going to hitchhike? Are you going to road walk and truly do them? A lot of people, it was very important for them. And it's a choice you have to make. They wanted to walk, consecutively every single step from Mexico to Canada. And for us, we personally were like, we're not doing the PCT to road walk. So we didn't road walk. And
we tried once, and then I had a lot of hip problems the next day. I was like, I'm done with that.
Yeah.
Let's hitch. So
another obstacle, and I don't know if it's so much an obstacle, it's just something that is on your mind as you're hiking is just wildlife. Our first day in Southern California, we came across a huge rattlesnake in the middle of the
It's like
trail.
10 in the morning.
And yeah, and outside of that, and seeing 7 illegals that had just jumped the border. It was a very interesting first day for us. We were like, okay, are we sure we want to do this? But so snakes were something that we saw throughout, but very much so in Southern California. I would say bears were probably the major concern throughout the trail because they're throughout. We saw our first in Southern California. Actually went through the entire High Sierra without seeing one, which is where you are required to carry a bear canister, which we brought ours.
This is not the lightest, but it was the cheapest. And it was on sale at REI.
So we actually had to put that in our pack as we went through the national parks. Bears, what's great is we're talking black bears, so we're not in their food chain. So even though, we'd see their scat and it looked like huckleberries, and we'd be like, not a big deal. Bears still kept Carrie up at night, and it's just something, they're big.
Just trying to survive.
They're big and they're there, and we went to a good level of precaution of trying to not sleep where we cooked, especially through the Sierras where we knew that there was a concentration of bears and that they act differently than the black bears. There is word that there are some grizzlies in the North Cascades, and I think if that population increases, then that would be something that PCT hikers will probably be a little more concerned about. We saw a lot of cougar prints. We did see one cougar in Northern California. Other than that, deer here and there, but what was very surprising to be on the trail for almost 5 months and see just a handful of wild animals was really surprising to me.
We don't actually talk that much, so
Yeah.
it's not like we were scaring them away. But
Yeah, so
I don't know.
So we didn't see as much wildlife as we expected.
But I'll tell just one little story about a friend of ours, and she was hiking. She was camped just outside of Yosemite, so by Donahue Pass. This is the Moon Pie story.
Yeah.
Okay, and just to kind of give you an idea of how smart the bears in the Yosemite area are and where they've evolved to. First of all, they go above tree line, and they are nocturnal, and they also know what food is the best food to eat, meaning your Snicker bars and all the food that you love. But unfortunately, I don't know if I should say this out loud, but as a thru hiker, there comes a point where not all the food that you want to eat fits in your bear canister. So you do take this risk of sort of jeopardizing a bear's safety by carrying food that doesn't fit. So we did try to eat the food as fast as we can, but probably the first couple days on the trail after resupplying, we would have this extra bag of scented things or just small things that didn't fit in that we just slept with because there was really no other option. Moon Pie, she was cowboy camping, and she had her extra bag, and she had wrapped it all up and wrapped it in her rain gear and stuck it in her armpit and went to sleep. And she woke up at, I don't know what time, 3 o'clock in the morning or something, and she felt this pressure on her hip. And she woke up, and it was a bear, and he was just kind of accidentally leaning on her, but his jowls were already in her armpit, pulling the bag out.
Not touching her, just
not just like and pulling it out, and took the bag and went about 30 feet, opened the bag, and ate every single piece of anything that could be eaten in there, and then proceeded to circle the camp all night long. And as a hiker, when you really want to sleep, he's like, "Bear in camp, I'm awake," and he's like, "Oh." But so that's just an idea of where the bears are in the national park, and they're not like the bears here that see you and take off. They're like, "Ooh, sweet, you know what I like." So.
Were there just no trees to hang?
Well, bear bagging in the parks don't work because the bears have figured it out, and they work as a team in the Sierras. Here it works. You could do it here if the bear hasn't been, fed. But in the parks, they've basically been ruined on some level because now they're like, oh, sweet, we know how this works. And they work as a team and do all this stuff to get it down. And because they're above tree line, a lot of times that option isn't there. So this was just another weekend hike. I don't know what Hoffa did here, but we just
There was
climbed
no
over.
fence when I got there.
Really?
So that's too bad.
So we hiked, and there's
this
this huge river, and there's a fish hatchery, and we just hiked around all these. It kind of goes through this little building area, And then we get there and there's this fence, and the option is this 3-hour or something like 3-hour reroute. And we didn't do it. We just climbed the fence. But, you know, I was like, I can run faster than that thing can fall. So that was my plan. It was obviously easier for him to get over the fence than it was for me. But anyway, so the trail closures come up, and you do have the option. Fire is usually one of the main reasons. So sometimes they'll say, well, it'll be open in maybe a couple days. So some hikers choose to wait a couple days, camp somewhere cool, and hang out. Otherwise, there will be reroutes, or sometimes there are people being shuttled, or there's the road walk option too. So.
And with the fire closures, there's usually a fine for hiking through a fire closure, because some PCT hikers really, really want to hike that section, and they know the fire isn't that close to the trail, so there's usually a pretty hefty fine. So.
If you get caught. No, I'm not condoning it. I didn't do it. I'm awake with the bears. I'm not hiking through a fire scene. Glacier Peak Wilderness, so I know a lot of us, well, we live in Bellingham, so we're familiar with the flooding that went through there. If you're not, they had a crazy flood a few years back that wiped out a ton of things, ideally 5 bridges that were really helpful to get over. But there's also a lot of trees down, very, very large trees.
She says a lot of trees, she means
a lot of like,
trees.
There's trees on the trail, and that's normal, but the Glacier Peak Wilderness, there are a lot of trees, and we went from doing 25 miles a day, I think we did 16 that day, 11, 16, something. There was a lot, because it would be a tree like this, but then there would be 15 more right behind it, and you know, sometimes you have to go around it or over it, whatever. This was the last water crossing. It's pretty daunting. Can't see it, but there's a big crack in this tree that coincidentally fell right where we needed it to fall. But out of the 5 bridges that did get wiped out, 3 of them have been replaced, so there's really only 2 crossings that are a little sketchy. But they're a little sketchy, and that's about it when we went through. So. And
there is a reroute. The PCT has advised you to go around it, but most everyone that we know chose to do the Glacier Peak. Did you?
Oh, yeah, don't do the reroute.
Yeah, the reroute at the end, there's a sign that says, the reroute is like an extra 5,000 foot ascent or something, and an extra 20 miles long.
And really the beauty that you saw, it was so worth it. It was one of the highlights for me.
It's the most incredible spot.
So
probably because of the trees being down and had to work harder for it.
Yeah. So water is probably the #1 concern as a hiker, especially when you start out in Southern California. So your entire day revolves around where and how you're going to get water. And if you see in the data book, that little blue book, it will have like a little lowercase w wherever there should be water on the trail. And in Southern California, I think our longest stretch was close to 40 miles without water. So it was just a matter of breaking up those miles and knowing, you know, could you sleep, could you do this? Luckily in Southern California, there's a huge trail angel community and tons of support for hikers, and lots of caches that looked like this. Some were structures that were built with, you know, hundreds of gallons. Yeah, this one's a little cave with chairs to sit in. And you can get a water report from the PCTA website. Also, they hand them out at the kickoff. Some trail angels have them, but that's updated as people are hiking. And we were, as first-time hikers, not knowing how the PCT was going to work, we were timid to rely on the caches. You know, maybe we should take more water here because we don't know if that cache, if there'll still be water there. Every single cache had tons of water. I mean, somebody, and the people that were involved went to great lengths to make sure that we all had water. The tricky thing about water is that each liter weighs almost 2 pounds.
It's over 2 pounds.
Over 2 pounds. So when you're trying to keep it under 25, and we know we're going 20 miles, and it's 100 degrees, and there's no shade, and you know, I'm a sweater, so I know that I need to drink way more than her. I mean, we get to the end of the day, and she'd have 3 liters left. Just like 6
cursing
pounds.
that 6 pounds.
And I'd be like sucking it dry. But we chose to go, we just used, these are great, platypus bladders, and we just used a hose, and these were lovely for us. As far as water treatment, you could boil if you wanted to, but weight-wise, it's really not an option because of fuel. Aquamira is what we chose to use. It's just a little tablet. It's like a glorified bleach. And it's done in, I think, 15 minutes. So you could just drop a tablet and 15 minutes later you were able to cook or drink. We always carried iodine with us as well in case we lost our Aquamira or anything like that.
We also started out with the Sterapin, which broke 10 days in.
Yeah.
And so we sent that back to REI and went with the Aquamira.
So, and just so you know, you can't buy Aquamira in California. So you can buy it online. It's just if you're planning to run into an REI in California, they won't have it. So, but you can get it in Oregon and Washington.
Food. We met quite a few people who chose not to cook or only cook in certain sections. We only carried our stove after, I think, the first 3 weeks we had it sent to us because it was a desert and we knew there were water issues. We're like, we're not even going to cook. Let's just deal with the dried stuff, get sick of it now, and we'll cook later. And so that's what we chose to do. We use the Pepsi can stoves, if you want to pass this around. If you can get online, they show you how to make them. They're really not that difficult to make, and if you're in the mood to make, I might make a few just in case you lose it. They are cheap and easy to make. Super easy to use, but they do take a little getting used to. The flame is a little uncontrollable at times. We used heat as our fuel, which is the yellow bottle at the gas station.
It's like an antifreeze or something like that.
We don't really know what it is, but it cooks amazingly.
A lot better than
Don't
white
drink
gas.
it.
Methanol.
There you go.
Methyl
What
alcohol.
he said.
There you go.
There is a red bottle and there is a yellow bottle. The red bottle makes everything black and sooty and it smokes horribly and it doesn't burn as hot. And the yellow one burns super hot, quick, and cooks your food amazingly. There were people who chose not to cook at all throughout the trail and did bars or did food where you added water, but it was just always cold. But we're big food and drink people, so that was a big part of the trail for us. We would sit down and have 3-hour lunches and cook big meals and have hot drinks and eat chocolate and rub feet and do things like that. So that's what we did. And then this is us in Oregon. The berry season was starting, and I found some wild raspberries, so I got them to add to our oh so glorious oatmeal in the morning. And that's what we're doing there. Calories. We ate at least 4,000 to 5,000 calories a day, which is a non-stop process of consuming food. We love to eat, so that wasn't too difficult. But we did eat. We had breakfast, and we had a snack, then we had another snack, then we had lunch, then we had 3 more snacks, and then we had dinner, and then we had some more snacks, and then you wake up and you're like, I'm hungry, and you need some more. So you can't eat enough. For us, there's a lot of weight loss on the trail. There were people who we met that lost like 40 pounds. We each lost around 10 pounds, and we think it had a lot to do with the food that we were eating because Melora's mother was so kind to assist us in the food. She got really crazy about it and looked up caloric content, the best nuts to send, the best grains to send, what cooked fast, what, everything. She balanced it all out, which was awesome, and would take requests when we really wanted something. Like Thai peanut noodle was my favorite dish, and still is. I could still eat that. Oatmeal is gone for me. Anyway, so I
Probably
can't,
forever.
I'm done. Cliff Bars and oatmeal are out. But yeah, with that being said, I think some people we found would hang out until we were done eating to see if they could finish what was left in the pot, and I think that helped them keep some weight on. But so I find that when you have to shop at Chevron for your meals for the next 5 days, you're really limited on the types of calories that you're taking in and the quality of the food. So I think that's kind of what we attribute to why we didn't lose a ton of weight. It wasn't a weight loss program for us either, though, so I don't know, maybe that was other people's goals. But anyways, so you can cook. Some other stoves, jet boils. People use jet boils. A lot of people were super happy with those. Also, Esbit tablets. A lot of people use those too. So it's just kind of whatever works for you. They're these little tablets. You just light them on fire and they, all usable things.
And food is a really big deal on the trail.
And that photo of the oatmeal, you're cooking it on this little Pepsi can stove?
Yeah, so actually there's a little stand right underneath it that I put it, because the higher you have, the hotter, the more of the flame it's able to use because it stays under the pot. So it actually got to a point where our pot was so heavy with food that it bent the stand. So if you can get something that's sturdy to put just around that, and then this is obviously blocking the wind, and it cooked it like that, it would take like this much in the bottom, and water would boil, and you'd have just glorious, glorious meals.
And you can actually buy, the towns along the way are now getting really good about carrying heat. So there were a few times where we had a hard time finding it, but so in town we would usually just buy it from a gas station, and they stock up during hiking season because a lot of people use that. So.
Yogi's book, which is one of the books that we forgot to mention but is listed on the thing, talks about where to buy heat in town. So Yogi, I don't know if you guys are familiar with her book. She's hiked the trail several times and her book is focused less on the trail and more on the towns. So every town you come through and pass through, she gives you library hours, how to get there to check internet, best place to eat, best place to sleep, the cheapest whatever for a hiker. Fire station offers free showers, so all of these things. It's a really great book. We didn't have that book, but we hiked with people who did, and that was important. Spot, Yogi book, things like that.
So trail names, we thought this was just a fun thing to touch on. If you don't know, through hikers usually are given or give themselves names as they're hiking. So much so that by the end of the trail you feel very close with these people you just hiked with for months and you have no idea what their real names are. Not even.
Well, there are a lot of Jeffs and Jims and Kathys, and when you've met about 10 of them, they all blend together. So the trail name idea we thought was kind of corny at the beginning, but by the time we hit Idlewild, we were ready.
Yeah, so these were just some of the people that we hiked with. Hoffa right here. This is Hoffa.
I have no idea what his real name is.
Brandon.
What is it?
Brandon.
Well, there you go.
So it's a really fun thing, and they usually carry from trail to trail. So people that have already hiked the AT or hiking the PCT, they already have a trail name, and they usually choose to go by that. So
we chose to name ourselves. We wanted a name that when you introduce, not only did it brighten people's day, but it also made people slightly uncomfortable whenever they called you. So I chose, one day I was like, you know what, I need something, and I started out with like, hi, I'm perfect. But it didn't really flow well, like, hey, perfect, or hi, I'm smarter than you, which isn't very nice, so I went with, I chose to be beautiful, and then so she was like, okay, I'll be gorgeous, and so it became this sort of thing, like, hi, I'm beautiful, and people were like,
and I'd be like, and I'm gorgeous.
But we had to do it because you can't do gorgeous and then beautiful, because obviously gorgeous is bigger. So yeah.
But then it kind of digressed to B and G. And it just is what it is.
It took us a long time to respond too. People were like, beautiful. Hey, beautiful. Like, oh, sorry. So but it works and it's really helpful. And we have a friend in town whose name is Johnny Two Stoves, and probably about a month ago I said, is your name John? Johnny? I've been calling you Jonathan, all these things. Like, no, it's Michael. All right, so.
It's fun. So we just wanted to run through really quickly. We're going to wrap this up, and then if you guys want to if you have any questions, just the expenses, just how much the trail could cost, how much it cost us. The main expenses that you have is your gear, your clothes. We went with just basically 2 different outfits, and it was not that we changed, it was more just a layering thing. It was this cold, so we wore more, and it warmed up, and we took stuff off. We really lucked out with our clothing. The REI stuff that we got worked out well, and we swear by smart wool. And yeah. Also, shoes were a big expense. We spent probably between $40 to $50 for each pair of shoes, so that's a little on the more inexpensive side. Food was just as much as gear for us in cost. And water filtration is another cost. Travel, you've got to get to San Diego somehow, so drive, fly, you already live there, great. And then, of course, we lucked out because we live in Bellingham, so we just had someone come get us in Manning Park, but most people have to take a bus to Seattle, and then they fly home from wherever. And town is a major expense for a lot of people. We really made a pact with each other that we weren't on the PCT to spend our money or our time in towns. So we had a strategy where we'd come in the morning and enjoy it and try and leave at night. But a lot of hikers, it was probably their biggest expense, hotels and restaurants. And when you've been hiking and you're dirty, and sometimes you just feel like you really deserve it. So we
did it a couple of times, but for the most part, we.
And
Stay out of town.
according to the PCTA, they say that like the minimum you can spend is about 3,000, max up to probably 10,000. Carrie and I did total for the trail. We did it for 5,000.
So they're about right on, because we
Yeah.
were able to share a lot of things and
Yeah,
tents.
because
and
if you were a
stuff
solo
like that.
hiker, then you would have to get your own tent, your own stove, and all those things. So, but it can be done for less. Just have to be a little more creative.
Yeah,
So.
we're really creative.
And so this is just some unsolicited advice from Beautiful and Gorgeous. Just really take your time if you can and enjoy it. These are my flowers.
This is a hike your own hike. No one else chose to go over this log except for Mike there. He chose to
Yeah,
go.
and just basically, you know, everyone can hike it in their own way, and they still do it. So hike your own hike and just do it however you want to do it.
There's nothing wrong with whatever you want to do, and whatever you think is right is right. And if you want to do 10 miles a day, go ahead. We met a guy who, his goal, he was just pushing his body to see if he could do 50 miles a day, or a day, just one day. And he did it, you know, and he was like, I just want to see. So it's your own hike. You do what you want with it, and no one's right and no one's wrong, and just do it.
Are these your picks?
Yeah.
How did you charge batteries for a camera?
Ooh.
We can talk a little bit about
gadgets.
gadgets.
We didn't have this, but
We got it in
Yeah.
a gift exchange this
we
Christmas.
got it as a Christmas gift, but a lot of people were carrying these. They are, I don't know if we would have chosen to carry it, but it's a solar charger and it will charge your cell phone, an iPod, maybe even a camera.
Otherwise, we found that when we went into town, we would just, you know, sit outside a grocery store, find an outlet on the outside of a building, plug in. Or a lot of trail angels would, you know, go to their house and you could plug in and charge up all your stuff. So.
And we, with pictures, we would just either download our pictures onto CDs and send those home, or a lot of people would just send the actual memory cards home. And so they would just take this 2 gigabyte memory card and just send it home, and they'd have a new one to go in. So, but it was, a lot of people would, you know, would be somewhere amazing and their camera battery would be dead, and they'd just be like, oh God. So this is at the Mexican border the day we started, and this is at the Canadian border the day we finished. So if you have any questions, please hang around. If you guys want to grab these for books, and also if you're interested in getting more information, we'd be happy to give our email address if you want to just keep in touch and bounce ideas off. So that's it.
We're done. Thank you all for coming and sharing this evening with us. It's very rare that people choose to sit and listen to us talk. We could talk. If you got 6 more hours, we got 6 days worth of photos. So.
It took me a while.